Can our unconscious minds make better decisions than our conscious minds? Can virtual reality permanently alter our perception of our own bodies? The field that can answer these types of questions is the social science subject of psychology. It is considered a science, and we need it to be considered a science in order to answer questions such as these. And how do we do that? How would we conduct an experiment in psychology, and what would it look like? Let's take a look. In this first section, we're going to try and answer the question, what is psychology, and why is it considered a science? And why do we need it to be considered a science? This is part of the foundations of AP Psychology, looking at research practices in psychology and data interpretation. Today, we're going to look at research as a whole and why it's so necessary in the field of psychology. This way, you can take a look at different types of theories that exist in psychology and decide what kind of research would best be utilized in order to answer that question. But first, let's start with, why is psychology so interesting anyways? Psychology is so important in helping us to understand the way that we think and act. And in order to truly prove that, we need to do so through scientific research. That way, what we find, we can apply to the rest of the population. That way, when we find conclusions about the way people think and the way people behave, we can try to implement some systematic and intentional change that will improve our overall well-being. And when we encounter ideas that aren't based in psychological research, we can view those through a lens of more critical thinking and make correct conclusions. And no matter what you plan on studying, whether it is psychology or some other field such as education, criminal justice, business, marketing, you can take these principles and bring them into just about any other area of your life in order to find ways to improve well-being overall. And that's the great thing about psychology. There are so many different places that you can apply this information and so many different ways that you can improve your own life and the lives of others when we do so in a scientifically backed way. It is important to remember, however, that we're not all universally the same. And while there might be trends that we see in the way that people think and the way that people act, there's always going to be a diversity in the different ways that people think and the way that people act, which is really what makes us all so different and unique. There are some similarities that we have, however, when it comes to our common sense failing us. Sometimes we fall victim to overconfidence, and sometimes we fall victim to what's known as hindsight bias. Hindsight bias, also known as the I knew it all along phenomenon, happens when after we find out some type of research finding, we tend to say, well, of course, everybody knows that. I knew it all along, which can often lead to overconfidence, where we think we know more than we actually do. And this is big when it comes to psychological research, because without testing what we think we know about human behavior, we're not necessarily always going to be correct. So let's talk about some of the different types of research you can conduct in psychology in order to start to figure out what we really do know about the way that people think and act. There are a variety of different types of research that you can do in psychology that help to give us a better understanding of the way that we think and act on a daily basis. And depending on the circumstances or what it is that we're trying to find out, different types of research may be better suited to different scenarios. For example, when we come across one person who has a really unique characteristic about them, it could be someone with an eidetic memory, who can remember things better than the average person, or someone who's had unique life circumstances that have led them to the way that they are. We might not be able to generalize what we learn from them to the entire population, but a case study will allow us to study that person in depth to try and glean as much information as we can. Correlational studies are ways that we can try to see if a relationship exists between two variables. It may not be something that we're able to directly influence through cause and effect, but we can see if a relationship exists, such as the effects of different parenting styles on self-esteem. We're not going to make parents change their parenting styles, but it is something that we can collect data on to see if there is a relationship there. If research already exists, we can also do a meta-analysis, where we can take those different research findings from different areas and start to draw some conclusions when we synthesize those together. Or, in the case where we can't manipulate anything, a naturalistic observation might be the best bet. Watching or observing people in a natural habitat or in their natural setting to see what types of behaviors they exhibit without interfering or manipulating in any way. This is a great way to get some baseline understanding of what we're seeing that may lead to other types of research moving forward. All of this research allows us to collect data, describe what we see, notice trends, or even establish some relationships. But if we want to actually make any changes in a thought process or in a behavior, the only thing that we can do is an experiment. Experiments is where we're actually manipulating a variable, say the amount of caffeine someone consumes, to then see what the outcome is going to be on something like their memory, right? Because if we can change the amount of caffeine consumed, we can test memory and see if there is a statistically significant difference that takes place. Experiments are the only thing in psychology that allow us to establish cause and effect, and it makes it the strongest type of research that we can conduct. We can't always conduct research because there are some things that ethically we're not able to manipulate, but if we can, it's going to be one of the most powerful ways that we can conduct research. So let's say there's something you notice in society, maybe through case studies or naturalistic observation or meta-analysis of other research findings, such as teens aren't getting enough sleep, and that's affecting their performance in school. You can then create an experiment to prove that that is going to make a difference, that sleep is going to improve memory or performance or GPA, whatever outcome it is that you would like to measure. In order to do that, the first thing that we need to establish is a hypothesis. The hypothesis is that testable prediction. It's implied by a theory. So let's say, for example, I want to prove that sleep improves your memory. In order for a hypothesis to be strong, it needs to be falsifiable. And falsifiable means that it is capable of being disproved by the experiment as well. So in the end, I might find out that sleep does not actually improve memory. So it is falsifiable, which makes it a good hypothesis to use. Now in the next lesson, we're going to get into the specifics of experimental design, but it is important that whatever experiment we're conducting, we have what's known as operational definitions. These are the specific steps in an experiment, including the exact amounts of an independent or dependent variable that's being measured in order for that experiment to be replicated. So when we're writing out exactly what it is that we're going to do in this experiment that we conduct, so if one group is going to get less sleep than the other, exactly how much sleep each group gets is an operational definition. So let's say one group is going to get 4 hours of sleep every night, and the other group is going to get 9 hours of sleep every night. Being specific about the amount of sleep is an operational definition that allows for replication. Because if I get valid results, someone else might want to come in and try the same experiment, or try it with a different group of people to see if those results are generalizable, if they apply to other populations or in other circumstances. And if I'm testing their memory, what type of memory test am I giving? How many questions? What types of questions? These are all things that are part of the operational definition of memory, so again, it can be replicated. And replication is the key to experiments in psychology, because that allows us to see if these findings are really able to be applied to other circumstances. So if we're going to create some kind of policy or norm that says that the school day should change or that students need more sleep, we'll be able to take those findings and apply it and hopefully see quality change in our well-being in different areas of our life. That's where we'll stop for today, and next time we'll get into the actual steps of an experiment, how we conduct them, and how we control for bias. Thank you so much for watching. I'm so excited to start this journey with you. And remember, be kind to your mind.